some noise for Orange Juice and a Blunt.
Whoreson, the story of a ghetto pimp. I stared out of the car window glumly. The feel of the steering wheel didn't excite me as it had the past week when I'd received the keys to the Cadillac from Ray. For a few moments, I let my mind dwell on Ray and his predicament. Last week, the police had picked him up for draft evasion. I'd gone down to visit him, and he'd given me the car keys. After being introduced to his mother and promising to give her $500, she'd given me the papers to the car. Everything was still in Ray's name, but I had the payment book. Sleet beat a tattoo against the windshield. I stared at the mess falling. It wasn't snowing or raining. This slush was a mixture of both. Visibility was slight, so I strained my eyes, trying to pick up Boots, who was standing in front of the restaurant in an attempt to pull a trick. I let out a sigh of relief. Boots came out of the restaurant door with a white John in tow. At least we would be able to pay the rent in the morning. I watched them make their way to the trick's car. I wondered idly how she would handle him. He was just about the biggest, fattest man I'd ever seen. If we had needed the money so bad, I would have told her to pass him up. She was about 7 months gone now. I pictured her and the honky together and grinned. The trick had a pot gut on him as big as the one she was sporting. I left the curb in pursuit of the trick's car. I had no fear of being seen, because the John's back window was completely covered, like mine, with frost. I found a parking spot a few doors down from the hotel, and I left my motor running, absorbing the heat. I watched the couple dash for the entrance of the building. Boots had turned out to be an asset instead of a hindrance during the past 3 weeks we'd been together. Time passed slowly as I sat there with the radio swinging. I glanced at my watch for the 10th time. They'd been gone over 15 minutes. I lit a cigarette to help pass the time. Angrily, I realized that, if something didn't jump off soon, I'd have to pawn my jewelry to raise the $500 for the car. After smoking the cigarette down to a butt, I put it out in the ashtray. Cutting the motor off, I jumped out of the car. Tomorrow was my birthday, and I'd be damned if I'd spend it cooped up in a car. I pulled my coat collar up and glanced at my watch. Damn tomorrow. Today was the beginning of my birthday, and I was poor as hell. The hotel lobby was empty as I crossed it and started up the steps. The night clerk had a small room behind the desk, and you had to ring the bell if you wanted a room after midnight. Stopping in the hallway leading to my room, I glanced at my watch. They had been up there for over 30 minutes now. Hesitantly, I stood in front of the door, holding the key. I was undecided on whether I should knock or just barge in when the sound of a muffled scream came from behind the closed door. I inserted the key and lunged into the room. The sight in front of me enraged me. Boots was completely naked, while the trick was wearing only his shorts. He was so obsessed with beating her that he hadn't heard me enter the room. He was using an ironing cord to whip her. Blood was running from her nose and mouth from the punches the trick would give her each time she tried to grab hold of the cord. Boots was so engrossed in trying to avoid the cord and punches that she didn't hear me either. She tried to cover her head with the pillow while pulling the sheet up around her body to protect as much of it as possible. Picking up a chair, sitting beside the dresser, I slipped up behind the trick and tried to cave his skull in. The chair splintered on the back of his head. He whirled around and reached for me. His face was covered with blood from the long nails Boots had raked him with. With the remains of the splintered chair, I struck him in the face. The chair didn't stop him. He grunted and wrapped his arms around me. He was as hairy as a gorilla. His chest, legs, arms, and back were covered with a thick, filthy mass of hair. For the first time since I'd entered the room, fear filled my mind. His foul breath was smothering me from our nearness. In desperation, I swung my knee up between his legs as hard as I could. A cry of pain exploded from his lips, and I kneed him again. His big frame began to fold up. Catching him by the hair, I pulled his head down and lifted my knee with all the force I could put into it. I caught him full in the face, crushing his nose and causing his teeth to scatter about the room. He had false teeth, because when he fell to the floor, he spit out the rest of them. He stared up at me, with fear in his eyes. When I saw that fear, I knew I had him. Grabbing up the ironing cord, I began to beat him viciously. His screams had the effect of waking up everybody in the hotel. The trick crawled towards a corner, and I beat his hulking body unmercifully. Every time he tried to get off his knees and come out of the corner, I'd kick him in the face. Suddenly he screamed, "That's it! That's it! Don't stop!" He gasped in shuddering ecstasy. I stared at him in astonishment. He held his penis tight and moaned sickeningly. The doorway was filling up with couples trying to peer in. The clerk stood in the doorway and stared in horror. His eyes kept going from the sickening sight of the perverted trick in the corner to Boots, naked and bloody, stretched out on the bed. Not realizing that I still held the ironing cord, I started towards the door to close it. Everybody in the doorway backed up in a hurry. "Listen here, boy," the clerk said hotly. "If you start beating him again, I'm calling the police. I don't give a damn if that freakish honky in there wants you to beat him or not. I ain't having that kind of shit in this hotel." I slammed the door in his face. When I turned around, the trick was putting his clothes back on. My voice was cold and deadly. "Leave your money on the dresser. All of it, honky. Just consider yourself lucky that that's all it's gonna cost you, too. I should kill you, Peckerwood." He took all the money out of his wallet and placed it on the dresser. Then, clinging to the wall till he reached the door, he snatched it open and fled down the hallway. My heart began to beat normally again after he left. I realized that he could have beaten me to death if he hadn't been an arch-coward. Assuming an air of compassion, I moved over to the bed and began to examine Boots. I found a pan, filled it with warm water, and washed her wounds gently. All the while I'd ignored the money on the dresser, but my mind was in an uproar from wondering how much was there. After I finished washing Boots and got her to go to sleep, I rushed over to the dresser. There was only $18 there. All the bills were $1 ones. I'd been hoping for a couple of hundred, at least, but the singles had faked me out. It didn't take acute perception for me to realize that I would have to play some stores in the near future. Like early in the morning, I needed cash money, quick. Under the face bowl, I had hidden the last of a $20 spoon of cocaine. I sat up with a Coke and some weed till daylight invaded the room. The sound of the morning traffic had dwindled slightly when I got up and slipped on my booster overcoat. It was a coat with shot pockets sewed onto the inside lining. 2 exceptionally large pockets, I might add. After smoking the last joint, I was ready for work. I glanced at the clock on the dresser. Just a little after 7, Boots moaned in her sleep as I gave her a quick check on my way out the door. Out on the street, I pulled my collar up. The hail had stopped.